Okay. One of my favorite astrologers is Scott.
Huh.
And we are here to talk about Valentine's Day. I say we, it's more like Scott's going to tell us about the astrology and the vibe of Valentine's Day. And that I wear my red, my maroon, I'm ready. I got my lipstick on. As a single lady, I take, I take caution with Valentine's Day. I have kind of mixed feelings on it. So I'm going to hang out and listen to what Scott has to say. And I'll come up with a few questions for you, Scott. Don't you worry. But let me tell all of our viewers a little bit about you. So obviously, Scott is an astrologer extraordinaire. He's also the host of not one, but two podcasts, Weekly Transit Astrology and the Uncharted Territories podcast. And if that wasn't enough, he wrote a book. It's the basics of astrology. So I'll include that in the show notes below because I know you're going to love Scott if you don't know him already. And then you can check out all of his work. So, Scott, how do you feel about Valentine's Day?
Oh, well, Dallisa, first of all, thanks for having me. And this is definitely like a conversation. How do I feel about Valentine's Day? I mean, I've got a lot of different feelings about Valentine's Day. I've got my personal feelings that I met my lady when we first interacted with each other on Valentine's Day, but I've never been like a big Valentine's Day person, but that is kind of like our anniversary is Valentine's Day because that's when we first met. But Valentine's Day is an interesting day because like the history of Valentine's Day, like where does this day even come from? It's like in my mind, it's just like this made up Hallmark holiday type of thing. But at the same time, there's a like kind of a rich history to Valentine's Day that goes back even before it was Valentine's Day. There was like a Roman festival called Lupercalia, which was like a fertility festival that occurred from like February 13th to the 15th every year, where they would like sacrifice a dog for like prosperity and a goat for fertility, and they would skin the goat and drench it in its blood and slap the women with the goat hide gently to because it
Gently.
invites for it it invites fertility, supposedly, is what they thought. So like these men would go around town like slapping women with bloody goat hides because it would make them fertile. And so there you have it. And then the Christianity got in the mix, and they thought that day was what is like satanic or whatever. It was a pagan ritual, so we can't do that. So they name it for Valentine, Saint Valentine. There's three Saint Valentines, and each one is a martyr. But the one that's most interesting, and like the stories are very unclear, but I think one of them was marrying young couples, and like Claudius the emperor didn't want young people getting married because soldiers were better if they didn't have families. And so this priest or this saint was marrying people like on the down low and got caught and was thrown in prison. And while he was there, he healed the jailer's daughter of her blindness. And before he was beheaded, he sent her a love letter and signed it "Your Valentine." So there you have it.
Oh,
That's Valentine's Day in a nutshell. And then some now it's all about like romance and love, but I guess that's all kind of mixed in the origin, but I think it's a little different now, obviously. But
yes.
astrologically, yeah, what were you going to say?
I was
What
just
are
going
your
to say
thoughts
it's
and
so
reflections?
commercialized. It's so commercialized. And I think, I mean, for most of my life, there really hasn't been anything going on Valentine's Day. Um, so it's just one of those things I'm like, oh, let's just go ahead and like skip past that, skip over that,
Mm-hmm.
not an avoidance, but just like, I think my opinion is that in society, maybe we have commercialized it a bit too much or set too many expectations on it. And so
Mm-hmm.
over the years, I think I just created an appetite of skipping past it. Because for me, I think the other days of the year and what's going on with the person you're in a relationship with or the relationship you have with yourself, to me, that's what matters more. I'd rather see like, what's my man doing on a Thursday night in the kitchen versus Valentine's Day buy me roses on the side of the road by some guy holding a sign. Like
Yeah.
for me, I
Yeah.
want like the day to day, dynamics in the relationship. You're not going to make up for the entire year with me on one day. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. So maybe that's why I'm single. Maybe that's another conversation.
Well, I feel you. I mean, I always hated Valentine's Day, like as an adult. I mean, I worked every single Valentine's Day. I used to work in a restaurant, and so every Valentine's Day you're working, and it was always like the worst. It's like people that they go out to dinner like once or maybe twice a year. They're not tipping well. They're very demanding, and so it could be a very unfulfilling day. I tried to, cultivate a better attitude about it in my later years as a server, and I was able to. And it's really interesting because one of the last times I worked on Valentine's Day, I was like, I'm just gonna have a good attitude about this. People are here, they want to, you know, they're in a romance or whatever, and I'm just gonna have fun. I want to have fun, and I did. And after that shift, I went down into the parking lot and I checked my phone. I never really did this after work, but I checked my phone and there was an email from a dating app that said that Gabriella likes you. And I was like, what? I was like, I haven't been on this dating app in like 2 years. And I look and I open the email and I see the picture and I recognize this woman. I'm like, oh my God, I remember liking this woman when I was on this app like 2 years ago. And I was like, I think I'm being catfished. This doesn't feel right, And there's another email that said Gabriella sent you a message. And so I read the message, and it was a very thoughtful message, and she was responding to a message that I had sent 2 years prior. And she was like, hey, thank you so much for your message. I really I hope that you're still single, because it was a really nice message. If you are, email me or whatever. And apparently like this dating app was like trying to pull people back in on Valentine's Day, and had sent her a message because she hadn't been on there for years either. And there was a message from another guy that was just like, sup. And so she was like, okay, that's a joke, I'm not responding to that. But then she saw this other message from me that was like 2 years prior, and she was like, it was the nicest message. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this? And we started chatting, and she was a real person, and now we're together. So it's kind of a happy ending for the Valentine's Day. But now it's like I'm going out every Valentine's Day to like celebrate our anniversary, which is, again, it's like amateur night going out on Valentine's Day, but I'm just trying to have the best attitude and have fun. But the interesting thing about Valentine's Day, I was just thinking about today, I'm like, Valentine's Day and astrology, it, on one hand, it doesn't really make sense because the sun is in Aquarius during Valentine's Day. And Aquarius is opposite the sign of Leo. And Leo is the sign that rules the heart. And so when you think of Valentine's Day, you think of the heart. So you think it would actually make more sense to have Valentine's Day when the sun is in Leo, because Leo rules the heart. But then I started thinking about it a little more, and I was like, you know what, maybe this is actually a good time for it to be Valentine's Day astrologically, because Aquarius is the sign of independence. And if you want a healthy relationship, you need independence within that relationship as opposed to codependence. And so this Aquarius energy brings a sense of detachment to the frequency, to the solar frequency, where you can maybe be a little more logical about your relationship, kind of like what you were talking about, like what's my partner doing for me, on the 364 other days of the year, let alone like Valentine's Day. Like, you don't just get to slack all year and not contribute anything. But Aquarius is about that contribution that you're bringing to the group, though. It's less about the individual relationship one-on-one and more about the group relationship, but it is about individuality and independence.
So can I add a thought came in?
Yeah.
So knowing that, and I have an Aquarius midheaven, so I'm pretty familiar with the energy. I like to be around people, but I also like leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
I can be very detached in my energy. So with the placement of Valentine's Day and Aquarius season, do you think, maybe going back to what we were discussing a minute ago about cultural expectations, or what we have to do on Valentine's Day, do you think that the placement of it in Aquarius season could even lend to issues coming to light in a relationship, to see where things may not be working, where you feel like you really want more of your independence if you haven't already had that? I mean, is the energy like kind of harsh in a way for Valentine's Day?
Totally. Totally. I mean, when you think about Aquarius, Aquarius is the sign that's ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of restriction and responsibility, the god of wealth and time. So this energy is very harsh. When you think of Uranus, the other planetary ruler of Aquarius, this is the primordial sky god, the planet of revolution, rebellion, and independence again. This is, like maybe rebelling against the partner. I mean, when you think about the story of, so you've got the story of Saint Valentine being beheaded, and then you've got the story of Kronos, which is the Greek god of it's the equivalent to Saturn, the Roman god. And Kronos was the son of Uranus, and he castrated his father, and threw the genitals into the ocean or whatever, and out bubbled up Aphrodite, which is Venus in the Roman tradition. So there's some really strange, like extreme energies around this Aquarius frequency. It can be very detached. It can be very cold. Maybe this is why people, they break up before Valentine's Day or after Valentine's Day. Like, the expectations weren't met, or they're wanting to rebel in the relationship in some way. And when you look at what's happening this Valentine's Day, here's the chart for Valentine's Day. There's 3 planets in Aquarius, the Sun and Saturn. So the planetary ruler of Aquarius, Saturn, is in Aquarius. Mercury's here. The Sun is conjunct Saturn. So there could be a real coldness, harshness, like work energy, like, you've got to work on the relationship, or maybe work on being more independent within the relationship as opposed to codependent. You've got Chiron moving through Aries right here. This is the wound and the ancient wisdom that is unlocked through healing that wound in Aries, which is the sign of self-confidence. So there might be a lot of insecurities that are coming up during this period. Chiron is also forming a sextile with Mars at 14 degrees in Gemini. So Mars is the planetary ruler of Aries. Gemini is communication, consciousness, coordination. So having the courage to ask the questions that you need to ask in order to get the answers or receive the answers that you're searching for. And then these two both align with Sagittarius, with the moon in Sagittarius, the freedom-loving sign. So the emotions are going to want to like just break free. It's like, I don't want to be held down. I don't want to be forced to do this or do that in the relationship. I want to do my own thing. And then Mars opposing and Chiron, all of this, it's really sparking up the emotions. And Mars at 14 degrees here, think back to what was going on in your life around September 11th, 12th, 13th, 14, right around then. What was going on in your life around December, that same time, 11 to 14, because September and December at those times, Mars was at the same degree, 14, that it is right now. So 14 is also interesting because it's February 14th. So you got Mars at 14 degrees. The moon's going to be at 14 degrees. So what was happening maybe in your relationships, in your life, in early to mid September, early to mid December that is connecting to right now?
So when I see that it's driving into that Sagittarius moon,
Mm-hmm.
I feel fiery. I feel passionate. I feel like, oh, well, I'm just going to be blunt and tell you like it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm a Sag sun. So, one of my life
Totally.
lessons
You know
is
it.
like really be intentional with my words. And I've had to work
Mm-hmm.
on that in this lifetime. So, when I see it all going to the Sagittarius moon, I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
So, it makes me feel like, even though I'm not in a relationship right now, I feel like I would just want to grab my girlfriend, go out and have like a fun dinner, um, not even really talk about relationships, like just go do something fun. Um, because you're right, it feels like this is a setup
Mm-hmm.
for growing in a relationship or exerting your independence and maybe exiting out of the relationship. So it could be a very interesting turning point with the astrology this year.
On the other hand, if you're really like in lockstep with your partner, this would be a good time to really go on an adventure. When I think of Sagittarius, it's about exploration. So, maybe you and your partner are traveling, you're exploring something, you're connecting to your spiritual nature, you're having a very powerful spiritual experience. There's also Venus, which if you're going to talk about love, you got to talk about the goddess of love and beauty, Lady Luck, the planet of relationships, Venus, which is 23 degrees in Pisces, mutable water, symbolized by the fish, ruled by Neptune. So just as the sun is conjunct with the planetary ruler of Aquarius, Saturn, Venus is conjunct with the planetary ruler of Pisces, Neptune. So this brings deep compassion and empathy to your relationship energy. But it's also important to recognize that during this period, you may find that you're giving way more than you need to be giving or way more than you actually should be giving. And because of that, you may feel an urge to escape into fantasy or drugs and alcohol. Maybe this is a really heavily drinking, drunk Valentine's Day with Venus conjunct Neptune. So, but the way to properly work with this energy is to be compassionate towards yourself and empathetic to others. Compassionate towards yourself in that, look, I'm doing the best that I can on Valentine's Day. I'm doing the best that I can in my relationships. If my partner isn't appreciating me in the way that I feel I deserve, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm going to appreciate how I'm feeling by being compassionate towards myself, but I'm also going to be empathetic to her or him and really communicate to them or to help to create the space for them to communicate to me what it is they feel they're missing. And that's where Mercury comes in here, the messenger of the gods, the planet of consciousness, communication, and coordination in Aquarius. Very logical placement. So let's just lay out the facts. This is why I'm upset. Mercury is squaring the North Node, which is your soul's purpose or the karmic pathway of the soul in Taurus. This squaring here, there could be some challenges with communicating your values, your self-worth, what it is you need. So you could be in a situation where it's like, I didn't want to go to dinner to that place. I wanted to do something else, or I wanted to stay home. I wanted you to cook for me because that's what I really value in relationship, is someone cooking for me. I didn't want to be in public. Who knows, whatever it is. But what everyone needs to really look at what they value and communicate that in a logical way to those that they're in relationship with.
Yeah, keep it black and white. Stick with the facts.
Yeah.
As much as you can. Looking at that Venus, Neptune, you said it's a conjunction, I believe.
Yes.
2 points. One, if we're anticipating a lot of drinking, if you don't want babies, you might want to think about, if you're going to get overly intoxicated.
Are you talking about drunk sex?
Who are you going home with? You might just want to pause, reflect, ask yourself, is this what I want? So set that intention maybe before you go out on Valentine's Day. The other thing that comes to mind is when I see Venus in Pisces and Neptune and all that kind of clustered together, what are your thoughts on people that may be delusional when it comes to liking someone, thinking they like them back, they don't like them back, or trying to go after somebody or ask them out or pursue them when it's not a match? That to me just kind of screams delusion too. What do you think?
100%. 100%. With Venus and Pisces, there's going to be a lot of delusion in terms of relationships and thinking that somebody is feeling a certain way when maybe they're not. And so it goes back to what you were saying. You use logic. And that's the Mercury in Aquarius energy, is being logical. But Mars in Gemini is encouraging you to ask the questions. If you feel something, back it up with a fact. Meaning, I think this person has feelings for me. That's what my intuition is telling me. But in order for me to get the clarity, I need to ask them the actual question. I have feelings for you. Do you have feelings for me?
Yeah, that's going to take some courage, I think. A lot of people listening to this, I'm sure several are thinking to themselves, oh, I really have feelings for somebody. Maybe this is when I speak up. Maybe I should say something. But it can feel overwhelming. But on the other hand, I think, don't live with regret. Say something. But also be
yes.
prepared. Be prepared for their response and honor what is that they say. So if you go, maybe there's a little bit of the delusion in the energy and you say, I have feelings for you. Do you feel the same way, thinking they're going to say yes? Be ready for whatever the response is and don't take it personally.
And especially if you're doing that today on Valentine's Day with the moon in Sagittarius, because you may get an answer that is very sharp and blunt and doesn't feel good. Like, what? No, I'm not interested in you. Like, what are you talking? So you get that kind of response where it's like, I'm not interested in you. Stop following me around.
Oh my God. And then pair that with the whipping of the goat parts or whatever you talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, stop hitting me with your goat hide, with your bloody goat hide. I don't want fertility from you.
Oh my God. This is the most amazing episode ever.
Yeah. So, and be mindful that this frequency of Venus and Pisces, this has been something that's been going on since January 26th. It continues until February 19th. To give you a hint on this frequency, think back to what was going on in your relationships between April 5th and May 2nd of 2022, because that was the last time that Venus was in Pisces. So whatever you were feeling then, is what could be coming to the surface now. And for those that, especially the folks that have key astrological points and planets in mutable signs, which would be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, they're the ones that are probably going to feel most of that confusion or illusion with the moon in Sagittarius. And
I have
yes,
my big three are all mutable.
exactly. Dallisa is going to be showing up outside of some stranger's house saying, "You don't love me? It's
Not
Valentine's
this year.
Day."
Not this year. I'll skip it. Oh
Yes.
God, Scott. This has been a fun conversation. I have one more question, unless there's anything
Yes.
else you want to
Yeah.
share. Is just kind of as you think about the energy of 2023, I've kind of looked at it several times, as a psychic, and part of me feels like it's going to be a big year for communities coming together, just on the theme of relationships. But I also feel this huge need for self-reliance and that independence. It kind of feels like it goes throughout the whole year. So do you feel, just off the cuff, for 2023, do you think people are going to be coupling up more or being more independent, single in 2023? Do you have a thought on it?
I think it's more independent, especially in the months of that we're talking like right now, January, February, all the way through to June, because Saturn has been in Aquarius, which creates that responsibility towards your independence. Like, if in order for me to be a contributor to a relationship or to a group, like, I need to be able to take care of myself. I can't be a drain on everyone else. But then Saturn moves into Pisces in March, but shortly thereafter is when Pluto moves into Aquarius. And I think that's when there's going to be a really big shift with the energy. But then Pluto's only in Aquarius until June, then it moves back into Capricorn. So maybe from July through the end of the year, people are starting to get back together again. But then in January of next year, 2024, the end of January is when Pluto moves back into Aquarius, and that begins a 20-year period of restructuring what it means to be independent, what it means to be a part of a group, what it means to be an individual. Those are some big themes looking forward. Absolutely.
I mean, relationships are a huge opportunity for growth. All kinds of relationships, romantic, platonic, everything. And I think people are always reflecting back to us what it is we need to learn about ourselves. And so they're a huge opportunity for growth in this lifetime. So whether you're single, attached, with multiple people, what is the relationship or ships you're in teaching you about yourself,
Yes.
and why you incarnated, and all that jazz. So relationships are there to ultimately, lead us to what we hope to achieve in this lifetime, in my opinion.
Yes, they're reflections. The people that you're in relationship with are reflecting you in some way, shape, or form. So if you're with a codependent partner, then there's something in you that is emanating that codependency. And this Aquarius energy is about detaching from that codependency, claiming independence, establishing your individuality, what makes you unique. And by learning to take care of yourself on your own, then you can be a greater contributor to a group. And if you're a part of a group or a relationship where everybody is independent rather than codependent, that's a badass group that is going to accomplish a lot, where everyone's bringing in a different sort of flavor, a different gift that is contributing to the greater whole, and the cause that the collective is working towards.
Amen. Amen. That Aquarius energy is going to be fun and quirky, and I think it's just going to feel like a big exhale in a lot of ways. I mean, because
I
listen,
love your optimism. When I think of Pluto and Aquarius, I can't help but think about the French Revolution and just people getting beheaded in the middle of the
oh,
town square,
oh,
all day long. So, uh, but there's a light and shadow to everything. There's
yeah,
two sides to every coin, and so there is a harshness to the Aquarius energy. It's very unfeeling. There's not any emotions to it. And so that can be positive. It can also be negative. It's all how you're working with the energy.
yeah, I feel it. I typically start getting the downloads and stuff before, the energy comes in. And this Aquarius and the Pluto dance and all that, it's going to be really interesting. I just like the energy of Aquarian. I mean, it is my midheaven, but I like it because it encourages us to be who we are
Mm-hmm.
and to try to think about things in our own unique way and bring that to the table, and how does it serve the greater group. And I like that part of it, but you're right. There's a lot of things I think coming that are just going to blow the socks off of people, which is why we have you back. And we're going to have another conversation and keep this
I
going.
love it. I'm in anytime.
You got to tell people where to find you. I've included the links in the show notes below, but where do you want people to connect with you online?
Theweeklytransit.com. And that has the link to all of the social aspects. Yes.
Theweeklytransit.com. That's where you can find all.
Theweeklytransit.com. Yes.
It's where you find all
THE.
the things. All the
Yes.
things. Yeah, don't forget it's like the weekly transit. Yeah.
Exactly. The is a very important word in that phrase. The weekly transit. The weekly transit. The one and only.
The one and only. And it's
Yes.
fantastic. And they have it on audio. I usually watch it on YouTube because I just like seeing the interaction and the podcast. So yeah, go check it out. Scott's work is amazing. I'm sure I'll have you back if you'll entertain the idea. And
Anytime.
yeah,
Anytime. I love our conversations, Dallisa. Absolutely.
they are
Thank
fun.
you.
They are fun. Well, theweeklytransit.com. Go check out Scott's work. You can check out my work and everything I have cooking at spiritandspark.com. I've included that link in the show notes as well. And if you're learning astrology, go get Scott's book. I'll include that down below too. All right, Scott, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Dallisa.
Thanks.